In this recording, we're going to talk about the if decision structure. Remember, your computer can do three things. You can program it to follow a set of instructions, to make decisions based upon a decision structure, and also to loop. So in this PowerPoint, we're going to talk about making an if decision structure. When you get up every day, you make decisions. You don't think about them, you simply make those decisions. You need to get the computer to be able to do the same thing. For that, you're going to use an if-then statement. This is the most simple form of a decision structure. You have the keyword if, and then you're going to use a Boolean expression. Remember, a Boolean expression is an expression that's always going to evaluate to true or false. X is greater than 3, X is greater than Y, X is equal to 2. That type of thing is a Boolean expression. Then you have the keyword if. Now, if this condition is true, you want these statements to execute. Then you have the keyword end if. So you want these statements in the center to only execute if this condition is true. So this is the most basic if statement. Now, you can have another if statement that is going to look at whether or not the condition is false. So basically you can look at it and say, if this condition is true, I want these statements to execute. Otherwise, please execute these other statements no matter what. To do that, we're going to use an if then else. So with the if then else, we're going to say, if this condition is true, then we want these statements to execute. So if it is true. Else, if it's false, in any other instance, if this is not true, we want whatever is in here to execute. Then you have your closing end if. Wherever you have an if statement, you will always have a matching closing end if. So this is going to evaluate for true and false. Now remember that the else is optional. You can just use an if statement, and only the statements will execute if the condition is true. Now you can also nest an if statement. When you nest an if statement, you're going to have an if statement inside of an if statement. So this is an example where I have this nested if statement inside. I could have located it after the if. In this case, I simply located it after the else. But you can have an if statement located in either place. So in this case, if int num is equal to true, then it would evaluate and run this statement to set 10 to the text in LBL message. Else, if it's false, it's going to evaluate this if statement. So it's going to come up here and look at this if statement. If this one evaluates to true, then the message is set. Else, this message is set within LBL message.text. So after it evaluates this one, then it gets to the end if. Remember, for every if, there has to be a matching end if. You should, every time you have a nested statement, make sure that you indent so that you can line up your if and end ifs. Now, an if can have multiple else statements. Each one a new question or condition to check. This is called using an else if, and it's otherwise known as an else if ladder. So this is going to look, you're going to have the keyword if again, and then your conditions, then whatever statements you need to execute. Else if you check another condition, and then you have statements. Else if another condition, and then statements. You can have as many else ifs as you want within here. Else if none of the else if conditions are true, then you're going to evaluate to false, and the else would run these statements. This is obviously an optional statement as well for the else here. Whenever you want to evaluate more than 3 or more actions, 3 or more conditions with an if statement, you need to use an else if ladder. This is an example. So if A is equal to B, then C is 10. Else if is going to check to see if A is greater than B. If it's true, C is 14. Else if A is less than B, then C is 16. Else, if anything else, then C is 12. So that is it for the if statement, and we will next talk about the select case.